Slovakia is one of those European countries that can seem easy to overlook on a map, but difficult to ignore once you understand its story. Officially called the Slovak Republic, it sits in the heart of Central Europe, surrounded by Poland, Ukraine, Hungary, Austria, and the Czech Republic. It has no coastline, but it has mountains, river valleys, medieval towns, and a capital city, Bratislava, that lies unusually close to both Austria and Hungary. With a territory of about 49,000 square kilometers and a population of more than 5.4 million, Slovakia is not a large country. Yet its position has placed it at the crossroads of empires, trade routes, invasions, and political transformations. Today, it is a developed democratic state, a member of the European Union, NATO, the Eurozone, and the Schengen area. It is also one of the world's most intensive car-producing economies. To understand modern Slovakia, we have to look at geography, identity, and a long history of being shaped by powerful neighbors while gradually building a distinct national path. Geography is central to Slovakia's identity. Much of the country is mountainous, especially in the north, where the Carpathian Range forms dramatic landscapes, including the High Tatras. These mountains have influenced settlement patterns, defense, culture, and tourism. They separate regions, protect valleys, and create a strong connection between Slovak national imagery and rugged natural scenery. The south is generally lower and more agriculturally productive, opening toward the Hungarian plain. This contrast between mountains and lowlands helped create diverse regional cultures within a relatively small country. Bratislava, the capital and largest city, sits in the southwest along the Danube River, making it historically connected to Vienna, Budapest, and broader Danubian Europe. Košice, the second largest city, anchors the east and has its own deep urban history. Slovakia's landlocked position did not isolate it. Instead, it made the territory a passageway, a frontier, and sometimes a battleground between Central and Eastern Europe. The early roots of Slovak history reach back to the arrival of Slavic peoples in the territory of present-day Slovakia during the 5th and 6th centuries. These communities settled in a region already shaped by earlier migrations and imperial influences. From the late 6th century, parts of the area were drawn into the Avar Khaganate, a powerful steppe empire that dominated much of the Carpathian Basin. But Slavic political organization also began to emerge. In the 7th century, Slavs played an important role in Samo's empire, often described as one of the earliest known Slavic political formations. Later, after the weakening and collapse of Avar power, the Principality of Nitra appeared in the 9th century. Nitra is important not simply as an early state-like formation, but because it became a key symbol in Slovak historical memory. It showed that Slavic political and cultural life in the region had deep roots before the rise of later medieval kingdoms. The 9th century brought one of the most important chapters in the region's early medieval history, Great Moravia. The Principality of Nitra was annexed by the Principality of Moravia, creating a larger Slavic realm that became a major power in Central Europe. Great Moravia mattered because it connected politics, religion, and culture. It was associated with the Christianization of the Slavs and the mission of Saints Cyril and Methodius, whose work helped shape Slavic literacy and religious tradition. Although Great Moravia eventually fell in the 10th century, its legacy remained powerful. For later Slovak national thinkers, it offered evidence of an early Slavic political and cultural presence in the region. After Great Moravia's decline, the territory of present-day Slovakia was integrated into the Principality of Hungary and then the Kingdom of Hungary, established around the year 1000. This began nearly a millennium in which Slovak lands were part of a larger Hungarian political framework. For centuries, the territory of Slovakia was not an independent country but part of the Kingdom of Hungary. This did not mean it lacked identity or importance. Its towns, mines, castles, and trade routes were deeply integrated into the medieval kingdom. The mountainous central regions became known for mining, especially precious metals, while fortified towns and castles helped defend key routes. The Mongol invasion of Europe in 1241 and 1242 devastated much of the territory, as it did across large parts of Hungary. Recovery was encouraged under King Béla IV, who promoted reconstruction, fortification, and settlement. This period helped shape the medieval landscape of castles and towns still associated with Slovakia today. Later, during the Ottoman expansion into Central Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries, southern parts of present-day Slovakia came under Ottoman control or influence. The region became a frontier between Ottoman and Habsburg power, reinforcing its role as a contested borderland. By the turn of the 18th century, Ottoman-controlled areas had been ceded to the Habsburgs, and Slovak lands were firmly within the Habsburg monarchy's Hungarian realm. Over time, modern national identities began to take shape across Europe, and Slovaks were no exception. In 1848, revolutionary movements spread through the Habsburg lands. The Hungarian Declaration of Independence was followed by a Slovak uprising and the establishment of the Slovak National Council. The uprising did not achieve its immediate political goals, but it was historically significant because it strengthened the idea of Slovaks as a distinct political community. This was not just about language or folklore, it was about representation, rights, and recognition within a multi-ethnic empire. The revolutions were eventually followed by the Austro-Hungarian Compromise, which created the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Slovaks remained within the Hungarian half of the empire, where pressures of majorization made the preservation of Slovak language and culture politically important. World War I changed everything. As the Austro-Hungarian Empire weakened and then collapsed, Czech and Slovak leaders worked abroad to gain international support for a new state. The Czechoslovak National Council successfully pushed the idea of independence, and in 1918 Czechoslovakia was proclaimed. For Slovakia, this was a major break from centuries inside the Kingdom of Hungary. The borders of the new state were confirmed through post-war treaties, including the Treaty of Saint-Germain in 1919 and the Treaty of Trianon in 1920. Czechoslovakia incorporated the territory of present-day Slovakia, which had previously been entirely within Hungary. The new country joined Czech industrial regions with Slovak lands that had different economic and social conditions. For Slovaks, Czechoslovakia offered new opportunities for education, administration, and cultural development, but it also introduced debates over autonomy and the balance of power between Czech and Slovak political interests. The years leading into World War II were a dark and complicated chapter. As Europe moved toward conflict, local fascist parties gained influence in the Slovak lands. In 1939, the First Slovak Republic was established as a one-party clerical fascist client state under the control of Nazi Germany. In 1940, its leaders signed the Tripartite Pact and joined the Axis. This state was not independent in the full sense. It existed under heavy German influence and was tied to the catastrophic politics of wartime Europe. After the country's liberation at the end of World War II in 1945, Czechoslovakia was re-established. This restored the pre-war state framework, but not the pre-war political world. The war had transformed the region, and Soviet power was expanding across Eastern and Central Europe. Slovakia's next chapter would unfold behind the Iron Curtain. In 1948, a Soviet-backed coup turned Czechoslovakia into a communist state within the Eastern Bloc. It became a satellite of the Soviet Union and a member of the Warsaw Pact. Political life was tightly controlled, and the economy was reorganized under communist planning. Yet even within this system, reformist pressures emerged. In the 1960s, attempts to liberalize communism culminated in the Prague Spring, a movement associated with the hope of creating socialism with greater freedom and openness. That experiment ended in August 1968, when Warsaw Pact forces invaded Czechoslovakia and suppressed the reforms. For Slovaks and Czechs alike, the invasion was a defining moment. It showed the limits of sovereignty within the Soviet sphere. For the next 2 decades, communist rule continued, but public trust had been deeply damaged. The dream of political freedom did not disappear, it waited for the right historical moment. That moment came in 1989. Across Eastern Europe, communist governments began to fall, and in Czechoslovakia the transition became known as the Velvet Revolution. It was peaceful, rapid, and transformative. Communist rule ended, and the country moved toward democracy and a market economy. But the future of the common Czech and Slovak state soon became a central question. The two nations had shared a state for much of the 20th century, but they had different political priorities, economic concerns, and visions of federal balance. Rather than descend into conflict, leaders negotiated a peaceful separation. On January 1, 1993, Slovakia became an independent democratic state after the dissolution of Czechoslovakia, often called the Velvet Divorce. This was one of the rare cases in modern history where a state split peacefully and both successor countries continued on stable democratic paths. Independence gave Slovakia the chance to define its own institutions, foreign policy, and economic future. Modern Slovakia has worked to anchor itself firmly in European and transatlantic institutions. It is a member of the European Union, the Eurozone, the Schengen area, NATO, the United Nations, the OECD, the World Trade Organization, the Council of Europe, the Visegrad Group, the OSCE, and other international bodies. These memberships are more than diplomatic labels. They shape trade, defense, travel, investment, law, and everyday life. Joining the Eurozone connected Slovakia to Europe's common currency, while Schengen membership made cross-border movement easier with many neighboring countries. NATO membership placed Slovakia within the transatlantic security system. Domestically, Slovakia is considered a developed country with an advanced high-income economy. It combines a market economy with a broad social security system, including universal health care, free education, low retirement ages by European standards, and very long paid parental leave compared with many OECD countries. The modern Slovak state is therefore both market-oriented and socially protective. One of the most surprising facts about Slovakia is its industrial power, especially in car manufacturing. The country is often called the European Detroit because of its dense concentration of automotive production. In 2023, Slovakia manufactured about 1.08 million cars, an extraordinary figure for a nation of just over 5.4 million people. This makes it the world's largest car producer per capita. The automotive sector represents a massive share of Slovak industry, accounting for around 44% of total industrial output. This success is tied to Slovakia's location, skilled workforce, integration into European supply chains, and ability to attract major foreign investment. But it also creates vulnerability. When an economy depends heavily on one industry, global supply disruptions, shifts to electric vehicles, and changes in consumer demand can have outsized effects. Still, Slovakia's car industry shows how a small Central European country can become a major player in global manufacturing. Slovakia's story is not only about politics and factories. It is also a country of cultural depth and natural beauty, home to 8 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Its landscapes include alpine peaks, forests, caves, rivers, and historic towns that reflect centuries of Central European life. Its heritage carries traces of Slavic roots, Hungarian rule, Habsburg administration, Jewish communities, German settlers, Ottoman frontier history, communist-era transformation, and modern European integration. That mixture makes Slovakia difficult to reduce to a single image. It is mountainous but industrial, small but strategically located, young as an independent state but old in historical roots. Since 1993, Slovakia has built a place for itself as a democratic European country with a distinct voice and a remarkable economic profile. The key to understanding Slovakia is this contrast. It emerged from centuries inside larger political structures, yet today it stands as an independent state deeply connected to Europe and unexpectedly central to modern manufacturing. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.